Hi guys, and welcome back to Futuresight. I'm Writer Joey.
And I am Maxon.
Today we're actually going to be giving you a slight double feature, mostly because these two topics will tie in together. We're going to be covering the Accelgor Vileplume deck, which I promised you 2 episodes ago in our episode on Nationals, and on how people have been teching to prevent status conditions from stop blocking their deck.
So for once we actually have topics that are actually related to each other.
Well, yeah, we'll sound up rambling. We're only showing Pokébeach that does that. With that said, we'll head straight into Accelgor Vileplume. Now, I'll be honest, when I first actually saw the Accelgor, I really didn't rate it. It was like, yeah, it attacks for double colorless, it's got the free retreat, it looked fun, but I didn't think it would ever be at all competitive. It's only up until recently, when I was actually watching a battle on Pokébeach's channel, that I actually saw the deck in action, and like one of his friends had actually made the deck work. It was actually doing the business for him, mostly because of a card that I think a lot of people tend to overlook, and that was the Sunflora for Sunshine Grace. I mean, a lot of the problem with I think with the deck and cover strategy seemed to be the idea of getting the Accelgor back. Instead of just having to grab an energy, you had to try and grab the Accelgor, grab the Shelmet, evolve up, attach, hit for 50 plus powers and poison, and overall it sounded pretty heavy, pretty clunky.
I mean, I think people probably thought about trying to use Mew Prime with that.
Oh yeah,
But again, it suffers the same problem. You have to search the Mew every turn from the trainer lock.
Yeah, the Mew Prime does make it easier, but it just being a basic, and there's a lot more basic search. The problem with that is that you'd be constantly going for using Collector as your support for a turn, so you could only really do it, like, say, every 3 if you didn't lose a Mew on the way. But the way the deck actually ended up working out is because of the Sunshine Grace and Flora, you could very easily, like, once you get 2 set out, which is a lot easier than it sounds with its own ability, or its own poker power.
So easy to get out, it's unbelievable.
I know, I'm guessing it's mostly due to its own poker power.
Yeah,
because once you get 1 out, you can use the first to get the second, and then those 2. Once you've got 1 Shelmet down, you just go for it. Use 2 Sunshine Graces, Accelgor Shelmet.
The beautiful thing is, because you run about 3, I've been testing the list, and it has about 3 or 4 communication. It's such a wonderful thing to play communication, to put Vileplume back into your deck, and then get out to Sunflora, and then the Vileplume back out.
Oh, I can see how that would work. I mean, the fact that it does chain onto itself. Also, like you mentioned, though, that it's a train lock deck you're running Vileplume, but you will obviously run communication. You will. I'm guessing you ran how many? Candy, was it 3 or 4?
I think it's 3. I tend to run 3 if it's because it's sort of like a 3-1-2 Vileplume line. Because
it's a slimmer line, you want to run slightly less Candy, but you still want enough to get it early on.
I think in things like Truth, they can get away with running 4, but anything needs 2 stage 2s with trainer lock.
I do see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, you always want to have the even though it's trainer lock and you can't use the trainers yourself after Vileplume's out, you really do want the trainers there to get the Vileplume out in the first place, don't you?
Yeah, it's just to accelerate your early game.
Yeah, I mean, it will be dead draw later on, but it's like it's stuff to pump back into your deck, so you don't really deck out at any point. I mean, I think the only hard part with this deck is mostly getting your energy back out.
Not really. The variant I've seen played and the variant I'm playing uses the Celebi Prime. So as long as you're shuffle drawing every turn, you tend to either get a double colorless or the grass energy for Celebi. Because the thing is, the way the deck kind of works, I'm sorry to cut you off there, but it's the way it's because you're never losing any of your DCE or your grass energy, they're only going back to the deck. So every time you use a shuffle supporter, you actually increase, I can't say increasing, but every time you play another card down, it's lowering the amount of other cards that aren't double colorless or grass energy.
So the word you're looking for is increasing your own, but increasing your probability to draw the card you need. Getting on to the whole Celebi thing, that actually does bring to mind a good strength of this deck. It's mostly the fact that, say you're going to miss a turn of the lock. Say you do whiff on the DC and a second grass energy. as unlikely as it could be, you actually choose what your opponent's next KO is going to be.
It depends. You can, if you've got, you can easily send out something big to block. I mean, you've got Vileplumes and stuff.
Personally, I was thinking, you could choose what to send out. Like, once you've got Vileplume, you don't really have much use for your additional Odysseys.
No, that's
so
true.
even though they're flimsy, you can send them out. Your opponent knocks it out, then you can bring out the Celebi again. You can bring out the Accelgor. Knowing that you will hit the energy in your second turn. You just got unlucky that one turn. I mean, if you can use the term, you whiffed that turn, then most likely you're going to be able to recover the following turn.
I mean, the whole deck strategy is very akin to Vanillux, but as I say, it replaces the coin flipping for basically having to get a very pre-required set of cards every turn.
I also think it has changed its mechanics slightly with the damage output as well. I mean, Vanillux is minimum of 40, maximum of 80, but here really, when you factor in the poison, you're on a nice stable 60. So you literally hit the middle ground.
The poison is pretty nice as well, because if you do miss a turn, you still have the damage from poison.
True. I mean, there's actually another strong point that you've pointed out to me in the past about the poison, and it is something I observed. It's the fact that, say your opponent has a Terrakion active, say you're against Mono Terrakion, because it's weak to grass, you hit Terrakion, you hit it for 100, it goes up to 110 because of poison. Coming back into your turn, it's 120, so you don't have to attack that turn. You could actually use that turn as an extra turn of setup, so it doesn't matter if you miss the energy, or you could go for like a second Accelgor to try and get even more field setup, because going back into their turn, their Terrakion will die from poison, get knocked out from poison, meaning that if they bring out another Terrakion, they can't go for the retaliate. Well, they can go for retaliate, but it only does 30 because it wasn't knocked out from damage, it was knocked out by poison instead.
Yes.
Which, unless they're ready to attach the third energy, it does limit their damage output. It also causes cards like Experience Share to fizzle out. I mean, say they managed to get an XP share down before you got the Vileplume going. If the active Terrakion is knocked out due to poison, then the energy won't shift. At least I don't think it will. Wait a second.
No, it has to be knocked out by damage.
Oh, so it has to be damage from attack, so damage counters would also get around it. Right, just want to double check that. Thanks for knowing. Well, it's a case of...
There's things I know, it's things that don't happen upon knockout.
Well, yeah, I think that's from your experience of being an ex-Yu-Gi-Oh player.
No, that's just me, because I used to use Chandeliers, basically.
Well,
it's knocked out, I'll just start using it. No, it's by damage.
You know exactly what your opponents don't get.
Yeah.
Mean boy. But yeah, as you did mention that the comparison to Vanillux as well, which is actually the strong point for the second feature of this episode. How people are teching to avoid the guaranteed status conditions.
Yeah, I think it's only been I'd say it is a very recent thing. I think it's just because for some bizarre reason people have realised that Vanillux is good against X's.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. I mean, I love the fact that as soon as I saw Vanillux's scam, I went, okay, this deck, I am on top of it, and I built it, and I've been rocking quite a few tournaments with Vanillux. I've had some unlucky tournaments where I've not done that great, but I've made top 20 in my country running tier 2. Some people know me as that guy with all the heads. Some people hate me because of my heads, but the whole fact that one person wins a Battle Roads of all things with it, even after he personally said that the deck is bad, and then all of a sudden everyone's on top of it now. It's like, oh, it's always been a good deck. I won't be surprised if I check the tier listings now if they have changed because this guy won with it. It makes people like me feel quite undervalued, to be honest.
But
I mean, it's it's if we can go slightly off topic for a second, it's something that you've actually stated yourself, but tier 2 doesn't technically mean bad deck for the format. I mean, you've been running Chandelier and that's been seen as tier 2, and you're top 10. I've been running Vanillux, I'm top 20, and people still turn around and say these decks are bad. It's like, well, okay, Chandelier is now seeing as more than a third of the metagame is going to be Darkrai. But that's just because you get hit for weakness now. How good the deck is overall is it's still a good deck. It's just not for this format. But it's like, as you yourself have said, really tier 2 isn't bad deck. It's a deck you have to think about. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that tiers 1 and 1.5 are just autopilot. I'm not saying that in the slightest. The decks do require thought, they do require thinking, but it's the fact that the thinking is a lot more linear. It's, what option do you pick, as opposed to, I have this, what can I do with it? How can I manipulate this? How can I manipulate this board? It's more a case of, right, these are the options available to me. Which one do I choose? So autopilot. You had to make the right choice at the right time.
Yeah, but I'm saying that. I mean, Vanillux was viewed as tier 2, and suddenly it's been winning tournaments. So that we kind of, again, you have to think about how justified is the tier system if this supposed tier 2 deck has now started winning against tier 1 decks, and it seems to be doing it pretty consistently, judging by some of the numbers we've got. Mm-hmm. And you have to think, well, then how reliable is the tier listings all of a sudden?
It's the tier listings tend to be judged by people who actually, it's mostly theory, Mom. That's all I can really say about it.
I love that Digimon.
I know, it's awesome, right? But it's basically, people think through a deck, and they'll either think about all the positives of a deck because it can do this, that, and the other, or they'll think about all the negatives of a deck because it's like Vanillux, it's all on coin tosses. Chandeler's only doing about 60 a turn and it's not attacking. But to be honest, when it comes to Vanillux, it's a case of it's a permanent lock. The only hard part of Vanillux is really just getting you set up. If you
and the coin flips.
Yeah, the coin flips are completely out of your control, but it's a 6.25% chance using the law of halving that you'll actually miss an attack. But the whole fact of you just go for the double setup on what you definitely need. So in other words, get 2 Odysseys. They can capture 1. You know for a fact next turn, if you have the twins in hand, you've got the Vileplume.
This is going back to any truth engine, really.
Yeah, anything that required a decent train lock is you put the priority in getting your Vileplume. Everything else can fall into place afterwards. Mm-hmm. Really, the whole problem is, just don't overextend. Don't spend your entire hand getting the Vanillux and the Vileplume and having no hand left.
Unless you have a Tropical Beach.
Yeah, if you get the Tropical Beach, then go nuts. You will draw into the energy you need, and you won't get shamaned to death. I've had that. It's not fun. Just sitting there hoping to get the energy so you can actually start to fight back. No.
Oh, that's one of the reasons, going off the tangent, one of the reasons Chandeler is one of the very few decks I don't have to wait for energy to do anything, just go evolve and go.
Yeah, that Chandeler was a bane of my existence, mostly because it's on an ability instead of a Poképower, so status conditions don't shut you off.
Yeah.
You can't retreat, so you're only limited to 30 a turn, but to be honest, with the speed I'm killing, knocking you out, about 30 a turn can really mount up, especially with Jirachi tech.
Yeah, Jirachi. Kill all the ice creams.
Yes, you made the ice cream scoop.
Haha!
Yeah, it's only the other way around. I like my Vanillux. Go on, I'm giving you ice cream, I'm taking you to the beach. There's even flowers, it's a perfect date.
But I say a lot of people are starting to tech against the status through Accelgor and Vanillux, yeah.
I love how we're talking about it.
Yeah,
okay, forgot it.
No, it's people seem to be between 2 techs at the moment, and that's the Unknown with the Cure Poképower.
Yeah, Unknown
and
Cure
the Espeon. Out of the 2, I lean towards the Espeon more.
Espeon is a permanent fix. Once it's there, they can't use statuses at all.
The only thing is that I can kind of see the other argument where Espeon is an evolution, whereas Cure, you can just pop it down and, it's good to go.
True, but Cure has less hit points and it's going to catch a bit. Plus, it's a lot of decks, they do run Super Scoop Up now, but that's for, you want to pick up damaged X's, you want to pick up Shaman. Do you really want to be spending a Super Scoop Up to pick up Cure? And then again, if you're against Accelgor or Vanillux, you can't even use Super Scoop Up. It has to be Seeker.
Yeah.
So for Cure, you have to invest your supporter for the turn.
The thing is, I don't
just to basically buy you another attack, really.
For the decks it plays against, or the decks it's teching against, I don't see how Cure is better than Espeon, considering the fact that even if you stop 1 turn of paralysis, unless you can't really pick it up, it's just basically prolonging the game by a turn. Obviously, a few games can be won on a single turn, but against Vanillux, unless you're somehow one-shotting it, it's not really doing a lot.
True. I mean, the key thing with Vanillux is really you have to make sure that the price exchange goes 1-for-1, which is what that's what Vanillux has always excelled at, though. It's like back when it first came out, the biggest deck in format was EPS.
Yeah.
If I get that Vanillux out, okay, I will lock your Zekrom in place. I'll knock it out and take a prize. Your counter to that is to hit me for 120. Vanillux is still here. I lock you. I knock it. I take a second prize. You're about to take one.
It's basically Gothitelle without mad stuff happening.
It's actually it's not as good as Gothitelle, to be honest. Gothitelle just came into a format that didn't suit it. It's around for 3 months and then got ousted.
What the hell, the 3 months?
Yeah. But the whole fact that with the Vanillux matchup, it is a case of you always go 2-for-1. It's like, what can one-shot it? Well, certain X's. Okay, knock out my one Vanillux with an X. I'll bring out another one. I'll lock you in place. I'll claim 2 prizes. You knock me out again. Oh, wow. I'm still on a 2-for-1 prize exchange. I mean, back at the
I actually got to
city...
tell where you can have a prize exchange.
Oh yeah, it was back at the regionals. When it was in Cumbernauld, this is like where I first saw my Vanillux going off.
Yeah.
It's like I was against Zekrom Eels, and like Zekrom Eels at the time was meant to be best deck in format. And by the point of the game where I'm normally starting to climb back, I've taken 4 prizes. My opponent's taken, what, I think it was 1 or 2. It's like all of a sudden, all of my twins were useless to me.
Yeah.
Basically, because he was coming at me with X's, it was a case of
That's exactly why.
good game. So it's like it gave Vanillux aggro. It gave me an aggro mode, and I went wild. It just went off.
I mean, saying that, it kind of proves the point about how a lot of people say about the whole X argument, how they seem to be very overpowered and the HP seems to be enough. But again, if you knock one out with a regular Pokemon,
it's 2-for-1 exchange.
Yeah, exactly. So you're winning the game faster. It's just they have a bigger guy to win the game with.
Yeah, it's like any kind of lock deck just takes the X mechanic and just laughs at it.
As long as you're playing against.
Oh yeah. I mean it's a lock deck anyway, so it should actually work. I mean, actually, like getting back onto the Accelgor deck though for a second. Something you actually mentioned back in our Nationals episode though. The whole fact that train lock at something like Nationals isn't really preferred. Mostly because if you go into like sudden death or anything, you really don't want to having to set up train lock. It can really hinder you. You want to be incredibly fast. You want to set up quickly. One thing I've actually noticed in the Accelgor matches I've seen you play though, it's not been very uncommon for the Accelgor deck to actually take the first prize.
Yeah,
it can be incredibly fast. Yeah. I don't know if that's like some Flora doing it or whether the attack just does the business in the early game. But it is a case of, it can go off completely. It can just like say, okay, well, I'm sudden death, I'll just hit you hard.
I think if you take train lock to any kind of major tournament, in like Nationals or Worlds, it's going to be very dependent on how you play the deck. I mean, it depends to how you play to time and such like that.
True. I mean, with train lock, you probably will see time quite a bit, just because they don't tend to be the fastest decks.
What I'm saying is like,
but as I mentioned, Accelgor can go off. Sorry, I cut you off completely there. Didn't I?
It depends where in time. I mean, as long as you've taken more prizes, it doesn't matter who.
I mean, well, if you go the game up in your head in prizes, you're fine. I mean, it all comes down to actual timing rule for a second game. But if you do go to sudden death, like Accelgor isn't completely out of it. I mean, especially in time, it's a case of, are they going to be able to set up that Espeon? Are they going to be able to set it up in sudden death? I mean, do they want to spend those resources to stop you getting your status up when really it's going to slow them down more?
Well, in sudden death, you just go for the first prize.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, do they prevent you getting the lock at all, or do they, try and stop you getting the lock, but hinder their own setup and probably give you the prize anyway?
Well, there's one thing that's interesting. Does Espeon actually have a decent attack? And that's one thing I've not actually looked into.
You bear me 2 seconds. Espeon. What set did it come from?
It was recent, that wasn't it?
I think it was Noble Victories, wasn't it?
No, it was before Noble Victories. I think it's only recently.
But it wasn't the most recent.
We are so organised.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, it's in Dark Explorer, sorry, yeah, I think. Yeah, Psychic Report, Psi Report, 60 damage, and you look at your opponent's hand for a Psychic and double colorless.
No, it's not too bad. terrible. Like, I'm just saying, if you have to do something with Espeon, is there anything you could actually do with it?
Oh wow. Just thought something about the Espeon as well. It doesn't wipe the effect, it just prevents it from being applied.
Yeah, we knew this.
Well, it's a case of with Accelgor. If you get the lock on, if you start the lock on them and then they set up Espeon, you can't paralyze them anymore, but your existing poison will stay there.
Yeah, that's the only real thing that's going to stay there. Everything else is kind of moot. As a long-term strategy.
A long-term strategy, yeah, it's kind of like up a creek, but as you said, that poison damage can rack up, and it's residual damage anyway.
Yeah, but once they're out of paralysis, though, it's easy for them to switch out.
But still, they're going to take that extra damage. Anyway, I think we're actually running a bit low on steam right now, so I'll yes, I think we should call it a day for now. I've been right at Joey.
I'm still maxing.
Until next time, stay on the top percent.
Then rate, comment, and subscribe, and all that nice stuff.
Oh yeah. Don't want to nag the guys, do we? So yeah, like Max said, rate, comment, subscribe. We love you.
Love conditional to subscribe.